today's a big day. Got a lot of stuff planned. I don't know what I'm gonna get to, but I'm gonna try to get to these lower control arms, end links, tie rod ends, and the motor mounts. This is kind of what's sparking off the whole project, and the headers. So first part of the video, which I'll probably go pretty quick through, is just kind of pulling stuff apart. I already pulled the battery. Alright, first thing we're going to do is pull off the spark plug wires on the driver's side. And then just remove the air plenum and air filter. Alright, so now I'll go ahead and pull off the spark plug wires on this side. So remove the smog equipment here, at least to this point. So if you still had that, it may be a good idea to remove as much of that as possible, as far as the hoses and stuff that run in here, just so you have better access when you're doing the headers here and the motor mount. So I've already removed that. I'll also be doing the an X pipe, which will allow me to get rid of this tube that runs down to the H pipe that's on there now. I go ahead and pull the bolts out of the H pipe that bolt onto the headers. So let's jump onto the car for that. You know, I'm just trying to record a video, and I got one neighbor jackhammering his driveway. I got another neighbor with a gigantic pressure washer doing something to it now. I can hear myself over here. Alright, I've got a microphone on here. I don't know how much of that background noise you'll still be able to hear. Here's my factory H pipe I'm going to take off. Still has a couple of catalytic converters on there, but I noticed a couple have been cut out, and they've got a piece of tubing in here in their place. So this is on here when I bought the car last year, so I'm just now getting rid of it. So yeah, I'll pull those two bolts out on those flanges. I don't know if you can see it up there. It's a 5/8, right about the middle of your screen there. It's a 5/8, so there's on that one, there's one on the other side. I'm going to have to use my O2 sensor socket and take out this oxygen sensor. And then I'll be able to get to the other bolt for the H pipe. And then also, before I take off the oxygen sensor, you want to just carefully disconnect it right here. Also, just like everything else, I come under here, I found a million things wrong. So there's this bracing under here. It goes from right here, about where the passenger foot would be, and runs across to the center of the K-member there. And there's two that go from that point up to the very front of the car. But when I got under here, I noticed that I'm trying to switch hands here. I noticed that something's hit this one and bent it way up. This one was bent way up here. And then the front two, they're bent all the way to the very front, like bent way up where they shouldn't be. So I'm going to take all four of these braces off and get those straightened out, maybe paint them, and then put them back, because they're up against the K-member, rubbing up against it, like right there. So there should be a little bit of space there. So that's probably making some unnecessary noise and rattling sounds. So I'll get that knocked out. I'm under here, so I'm going to take all this off and then I'll check back in. Driver side, I got the O2 sensor disconnected. There's the plug right there in the middle of the screen, and it came out of a hole somewhere up there. But I got the bracket off, you can see there, both the nuts off of there. Also went ahead and removed all the bolts back here on the back side of the H pipe. Drop down the two rear pipes so I could slide this H pipe back. Also, you'll have to slide this little pipe off. This is that air tube that comes from up in the engine compartment, so I have to get that off of there. And let's see, took the bolts off of the bracket right there. It's just kind of hanging down. So I think I've got one bolt left in this side. I'll take that off, and then I'll go to the center and remove those two bolts. Again, I'm just removing that to straighten those bars out where they've gotten bent. Alright, so I finally got the exhaust out of there. It looks really naked under here now. So let's take a look at it. So there it is. You can see the Frankenstein job on here. Not only did they replace the catalytic converters with a straight pipe here, but it's actually smaller than the factory pipe, which is small enough as it is. See, I got that beast out of there along with the little air tube that runs down to that connection there. And the new model is much bigger. So I already got the air tube blocked off right here at the X pipe. So yeah, this is from the from BBK. I believe I got it from LMR. All right, next up, I believe it's about time to remove the headers. But I've just about got all of the bolts out here. Pay attention, you've got the spark plugs here, so if the headers drop and hit the spark plugs, it could break the ceramic on there, and you don't want that. So be ready to catch or to hold on to these headers as you take out the last couple of bolts. There's that one. Got one more to go, and I'll have these out, and I'll do a comparison between these and the new ones. Alright, that came right out. So now you just want to get your gasket scraper and get this gasket off of here. Make sure it's clean, and that part will be done. Now let's take a look at these headers. Still can't believe that. So you definitely see a difference. Not only is your main diameter of your pipe a little bit bigger, but where you've got these angles right here coming out, the factory is pinched right here. It's very narrow. So these, it's wide open. It stays fully open all the way to here. These, it actually pinches again once it gets to the end here. This is much smaller than this one. So it should be a huge improvement in airflow. You can even see in here where factory one is pinched again to make room for this line. So these are all huge. So that's it. I think this was a good decision, especially seeing as how these were only maybe $65 or so. I got them from Speed Daddy on eBay. So I'll put a link to that down in the summary below. Alright, so as you can see, motor mount, you've got this one metal bracket that's sandwiched in between this polyurethane piece, which is mounted inside this other metal bracket. If you look at our stock one here, you'll see it has a rubber piece, but it's completely disintegrated, and now the metal part, one piece of the bracket, is directly against the metal on the other piece of the bracket that is supposed to be sandwiched between. So yeah, this motor mount is completely shot. You can put my finger all the way through it. So the other side doesn't seem quite as bad. But it does look like a big mess down there. Yeah, there's still a big space up in there above that rubber piece where it's collapsed. Not quite all the way to the metal, but pretty close. So I've got both sides cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead and mount the two pieces where the hoist will connect to. So I can go ahead and lift the engine up. But I believe that's the next step. I am going to, before I do that, I'm actually going to remove the transmission mount because I got a new one of those. That's in here. Let's take that out. It's got a new transmission mount too. So before I lift the engine, I'll go ahead and remove the transmission mount under there. I might even pull the drive shaft just so I can check the U-joints. Do that while I'm under there. So yeah, next steps. Let's do this. I remember when putting on the brackets, you have to put a spacer on the bolt that goes in there to take the space of where the header used to be, or the bolt will bottom out and won't go in all the way. So this one goes in, and then the bracket goes on, then another nut goes on it to hold the bracket on. Because the bracket's got to be spaced far enough away from the valve cover here so you don't damage that or break that seal. And then the bracket will go on just like that. You'll have plenty of space for that bracket to not hit the valve cover there when you lift the motor. Alright, so I'm going to remove the transmission mount next. So I'm just going to remove one of these bolts and then the two bolts here underneath in the middle. And that should drop down. I may take the whole thing off and just repaint it. Although it doesn't look like it's in that bad a condition. Now I didn't notice this at the time, but that exhaust hanger bracket is on upside down. So when I reinstalled this, I just installed it like it was on there when I took it off. So I installed it upside down. So eventually I had to take it all back apart and put it on right side up, but I don't think that's going to appear in the part 2 video. So just wanted to point that out. Once I drop that down, I'll be able to get to the bolts inside there. There's one there and then one over on the other side. And then that whole piece should drop out. Alright, so I've got these two nuts off of there, and now I'm doing this end of the cross member. Be sure and support the transmission with a jack stand, just to bear the weight of that. You don't want that dropping while you're trying to take the cross member off. Alright, so I got the transmission cross member out. Went ahead and cleaned it up pretty good, degreased it, and got it down to the factory finish. I see there's a lot of spots of bare metal, so I'm going to go ahead and hit any area of bare metal with the self-etching primer. Then we'll adhere to that properly, and then I'm going to go over the whole thing with just a this high performance enamel. It's gloss black, so I'll have that looking good. Alright, so now that I've got the cross member out, you can see the transmission mount here. It looks like it's in pretty rough shape. So you just want to pull out that bolt right there, and then there's one on the other side. So I'm going to do that, and we'll see what happens. This is the first time I've done one of these. Alright, so I've got the transmission mount out. And you've got the exhaust hanger there. When I look at this, I can see all the rubber in here is really breaking down. Yeah, I can stick the screwdriver right into it. but there's a lot of movement to it also. It's kind of hard to tell on the trash cam, but this there's a lot of play there. So the new one should resolve all of that. So the new one will replace all of that with just this. So it'll bolt in with the original bolt holes here, and instead of having these studs that come through and you put nuts on it, you'll just put bolts right into here through the transmission cross member. So I've already painted the exhaust hanger. That's ready to roll. Also went ahead and painted the bolts for the transmission cross member. So painted the nuts and the bolts for that, bolt heads. So next, I believe we're going to do the motor mounts. You can kind of easily see where this how this bolts on. You got a bolt under each side, one bolt underneath right here, and the other bolt is underneath right here, which you can get to right underneath the bottom of the car. Then you got which you'll get to from the fender well. You'll have nuts on there. You can see it behind this, right in there. But before I do that, because I don't want anything to move, I'm going to go ahead and bring the hoist over into place and get it connected. And I'm going to lift the engine just slightly, just so there's no weight pushing down on those mounts when I'm breaking them loose. Alright, so I got both of the 5/8 bolts. There's one here, one on the other side that goes up into the bottom of the block under here. And there's actually just one nut, I believe it's the 13/16 that holds this bolt into place. And so this is ready to come out. I've got I've never done this before. I'm not sure if I'm doing it the right way, but I had the hoist in the front, and it seemed to be pulling the engine forward too much. So I decided to just move it over to the side. So I've got it on this side of the car here. So I'm just going to do this one motor mount and then switch it around and put the hoist on the other side and do the other one. It could just be this hoist just isn't long enough, or I don't know, first time I've used the engine hoist too. So, but this seems to be working. So I'm going to pull this one out. There it is. So yeah, it's just kind of flopping around there. Not be easy to see in the video, but it's pretty loose. You can see all that rubber is completely corroded, deteriorated. Should be a big difference. Onto this. Alright, so it's time to put this one in. Now this one has bolts on the top and the bottom, where the factory one was just riveted on the bottom, and I guess just locked into place with that little nub right there. So it has the same little nub there. Alright, so that's it for this video. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. If you go to my playlist, you'll see a playlist just for the Fox body. And I'll also put a link to the part 2 video where I install all of these things that I'd removed today. I will also put links to all these new parts and pieces down in the summary below, so check those out. And hey, that's it. Thanks for watching.